But am I too sceptical? Let's ask an expert. Joining me is Dr. Malcolm Davis, who's worked in the Department of Defence and is now a Senior Analyst with the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Malcolm Davis, thank you so much for your time. Is Richard Marles right about the danger we're in? I thought he seemed pretty honest about that danger coming from China, especially. Usually it's let's not mention who the threat is.
Look, I think as with the Defence Strategic Review last year, this year with the National Defence Strategy, Defence Minister Marles is correct to point out the danger that China places against us. I think that the NDS, the National Defence Strategy, if you read it, it essentially clearly lays out that threat from a rising China that is acting in a way that's inimical to Australia's defence and security interests, not just in terms of directly against Australia, but within the region. So the strategic outlook in the National Defence Strategy that was released today is correct.
Now, that's all very well, but then where's the solution?
Well, the solution is what worries me, in the sense that when you look at what Marles was saying in a speech at the National Press Club today, he was emphasising investment in long-term capabilities that would start to appear by the mid-2030s and go from there. He seemed to be de-emphasising the sorts of capabilities that we would need to have if a major crisis broke out is as early as the second half of this decade. And I think everyone understands what this is. It's a Taiwan Straits crisis where China seeks to impose unification on Taiwan against the will of the Taiwanese people. As the United States decides to come and assist Taiwan and then calls on Australia to step in and support the United States. Marles seemed to be downplaying this scenario. He seemed to be de-emphasising the requirement for being ready for this sort of short-term threat in favour of a strategy of hope that is based around an expectation or a hope that nothing bad will happen in this decade and we can actively prepare for crises that could occur off in the distant future.
That hardly seems a strategy to me. Look, I buy part of the excuse that a lot of this can be sheeted home to the Liberals not doing the right thing. But that said, the crisis is now, the situation suddenly got much worse now. It's upon us now. What do we actually need to do? I mean, maybe you just can't go to the shop and buy a destroyer right then and there, but what can we realistically do right now?
Well, firstly, I think this lack of decision and this paralysis that has plagued defence planning goes back further than the Liberals. It goes back to 2009 when the Rudd government released its defence white paper and then the Treasurer promptly pulled the finance rug out from that defence white paper and defunded defence. So it goes back a lot further than the Liberal government. But I think you're right, we can't essentially acquire major weapon systems and platforms overnight. That's just not practical. So what we need to do is start investing in high technology capabilities, investing in autonomous systems, drones that are lethal and armed. We need to be investing in space capabilities where you have a vibrant commercial space sector in this country that needs to be fully supported by the government. It's not. There's real concerns in the space sector about this government's indifference to space. And I think it needs to look at real investment through agreements such as AUKUS towards advanced long-range strike capabilities. Now, Defence Minister Marles did obviously talk about that today in his speech, but when you look at the capabilities we're getting, a lot of them won't start turning up until the late 2020s or early 2030s, and a lot of them lack the range to strike at Chinese capabilities in areas such as the South China Sea. They are still short-ranged in comparison to what we need.